So now this is my item on the agenda where I'm going to share details of 3 regional frameworks. So we have the ADS 1.1 Architect Design Services Framework, our new Multi-Disciplinary Consultancy Services Framework, MDC1, and the Engineering Inspection Services. So I'll start with ADS. Now, this was actually a joint project with Southwark Council. All 3 of them were a collaboration in some form. But just to clarify that this framework only covers London. So this was the first project that we did with Southwark. So kind of like a proof of concept, and it was, not always easy collaborating, hence my comment earlier. But really good things came out of that collaboration. So how did it start? So this is Southwark. So Southwark had a vision a couple of years ago that they wanted to encourage the most talented and emerging designers that really brought innovation to urban planning. But plus they also had their Fairer Futures commitments and wanted sort of more sustainable living in their borough. They also had a requirement for a diverse supply chain, local supply chain, and a clear need and a pipeline of work. LHC, us, we had a gap in our portfolio, and there was a clear need for an architect services framework. We did want to collaborate, and we wanted to share resource. So we knew that Southwark didn't really have the resource to deliver this in a short space of time. So we knew Southwark wanted to access architects that weren't on other frameworks, as well as the traditional architects. They wanted to access micro SMEs and SMEs from diverse backgrounds. They wanted architects who knew how to engage with hard to reach and diverse communities, but it had to be very much design and innovation focused. They wanted it to be accessible. They didn't want to disadvantage less experienced bid writers, and the criteria should be in proportion with the real market and real risks. So what I heard was micro SMEs, emerging talent, diverse talent. And what I got from that was, well, actually, there's a lot of arbitrary thresholds that don't really reflect the market. Sometimes public sector asks for track record requirements that really aren't appropriate, or there's too much essay writing. There's not enough focus on innovation, too much on have they built exactly what I want built now before, ×3. Too much on that. So we got a lot of this from the market engagement that we undertook. So we looked at what specialisms did we want. So we started with these 6 areas, fairly typical ways of categorizing different types of architecture. Then we looked at, well, actually, is that going to capture enough micro SMEs? And we concluded that we really needed a lot 7 that reserved spaces for micro SMEs specifically. So you could only apply to lot 7 if you had a turnover of under 2 million. So what we also looked at was case studies, and we recognized that 3 was too many. That again didn't really reflect the market. So to get one construction scheme designed and then completed within a 3-year period is quite a big ask, but to 3 is just unrealistic. So we extended the period of time that case studies were accepted for, so to 7 years. We said, actually, why does it have to be in the UK? Why does it have to be in public sector? It's more about demonstrating design principles and how you worked with the client, how you met the brief, and how you engage with the local community. We looked at value bands. So we decided we didn't need value bands for all of the lots. We could see that they were too restrictive. So we did apply them to the lots 2, 3, and 4, where we knew we would see more work coming through. And then we looked at, well, can we make sure we get the levels right? So we've got a 0 to 5 million. We've got a 5 to 20 as the second value band, which overlaps with the third, which is a 10 million plus. So that was our way of just trying to avoid it being too restrictive for our clients. So I touched on experience and how we assess that. So we also tried to strip it back, really use architect language, design principles. We asked for, in some cases it was one case study, or in some cases two, and for some we accepted an unbuilt scheme. So how could we be fair to those who weren't experienced in bidding? Well, this is where the structured interview that we undertook came into play. So we spent many hours interviewing every single one of our Lot 7 bidders. And this was really important in giving them a platform, allowing them to really showcase what they brought. And we were absolutely blown away, just blown away by some of the work that these architects were doing. How did we ensure that they were diverse bidders? Well, this was really down to our pre-tender engagement. We had to reach out to some of the minority networks that are out there that are doing some amazing work. And we had to take a lot of time really getting feedback from the market, really getting to know individual architect practices. Also, we did ask for an EDI statement at shortlisting stage. So this was really going with the assumption that if they are very good with EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion, they're more likely to be diverse themselves. We also did collect diversity data so that we could see, whilst this wasn't evaluated, we just wanted to track how are we doing. So traditionally in public sector, we look at qualification and design skills. We look at then from there, you know, a practice becomes more experienced, better at delivering complex schemes and social value through those schemes. And then sometimes, you know, they might develop that, be very innovative and pioneering, particularly where somebody moves away from a bigger practice and sets up on their own. So that's traditionally what we look at. But what we did with ADS was we looked at a different dimension that is not typically considered. We looked at organizational EDI and lived experience of the practices. So what their philosophy is, what they bring, and then how that informs the way that they deliver their schemes and how they relate to residents and communities. And then a step further than that, who are they networking with? Who do they know locally? Who do they collaborate with? Who are the designers and artists and campaigners that they work with? And who do they advocate for? You know, who do they know? Who do they support? And that really we could only get from, I mean, you can't get this from a written statement, really. This was really, the quality came through in the interviews. So we got a good spread as a result of investing this time. So you might normally capture this segment, but we got a much better spread. So if you think of EDI as a journey, let's say it's 1,000 steps in the journey to be really, really progressive. Step one in that journey would be having a policy in place, right? So we think that's fairly important. Step two might be signing up to the REBA Diversity Charter. But what you often find with standard frameworks is the focus is entirely on these two steps and evaluating that as EDI. Whereas in reality, there's so much more that architects can do or businesses can do. They can seek out disadvantaged communities for outreach work placements. They can do data monitoring. They can engage and do advocacy for networks. They can learn, share, sponsor, influence wider, spearhead change. There is so much more, and that's what we were looking for. We were looking for those that really go and take it to another level. So this was the result of ADS. So 124 architects, highly competitive process. So we know we really are proud that we've got the best of the best. 7 of these practices are Black-led. 19 of these practices are female-led. 4 are Black and female-led. And we are really proud of that because so many of these practices are not on other frameworks. The majority of these are micro SMEs with turnover under 2 million. Very innovative, a lot of these are not normally, due to the arbitrary criteria, able to get onto other frameworks, but they bring something fresh and different, a new perspective. They're more community focused, grassroots. Many of them have lived experience of social housing, and really come with something fresh when it comes to fresh insight when it comes to community engagement. So we have gold medal, REBA Gold Medal Award winners, Sterling Prize winners, Rising Stars, OBE recipients, ex-REBA vice presidents on here. And please do watch this space, because I can't do them all justice here, sadly, but do watch this space. Keep an eye on LinkedIn, because we are actually going to invite them to share more about what they do in future webinars. So we want you to know that the talent that you have access to. So Multidisciplinary Consultancy Services, MDC1. So this framework is goes wider than London. So this actually covers London and the Southeast, and also our North region. So these are two different business units of ours. So this is CPC in the North. So whilst this was a slightly different type of collaboration with Southwark, it was still nevertheless collaboration. So Southwark and many other clients have expressed a desire for a diverse supply chain, or to access micro SMEs. There were concerns about unmanaged frameworks that have been expressed to us, and we've had a clear need and pipeline of work on Southwark's part. And also they had had some issues with a previous similar tender that they had run, and they had a lot of lessons that they were very generous in sharing with us. We had a gap in our portfolio. We wanted to meet this need for consultancy services, and of course we were keen to collaborate. So what we wanted was access to new talent, new consultants, as well as the big names. So we know that clients do want the traditional consultants as well as new ones. So we wanted a range of size business, micro, small and medium, from diverse backgrounds. We wanted consultants that are collaborative by nature as well. So we wanted to ensure we avoided the race to the bottom with best price ranked, which is traditionally used. And we wanted to ensure that the criteria was really in proportion with the market and the risks. So the sorts of comments from a client's point of view, they want a consultant who's agile, responsive. Well, I think, you do get a slightly different type of service from micro SMEs, and customer service is obviously really important. So how did we structure this? So we had 12 lots. We did a lot of pre-tender engagement, of course. Actually, we did it in 3 stages. In fact, there was a lot. We got feedback from the consultants that gave us their time, and we did a number of polls, in fact, and this was how we ended up with this list of disciplines. So you'll see you've got lots 1 till 11, and then lot 12 is a multi-discipline. So then we looked at, well, how do we actually make sure this is sustainable, fair for micro SMEs, and attracts them? So this was around the time after the pandemic had hit. So we actually extended the term of the framework to 6 years. So traditionally it's 4. You can extend it, if there's a clear business reason, and our business reason was due to COVID and delays with construction schemes. So the good thing about that, though, is by extending it 6 years, that's good for the sustainability of the framework and the appointment companies on it. It's a huge investment of their time to bid to be on a framework. It also gives them time to grow with the life of the framework. So as I say, we engaged a lot with the market. We gave bidder support, put out adverts. We looked at the financial assessment criteria as well. We made sure that was actually in proportion. We ended up taking out a turnover threshold, because when you're looking at consultancies, well, their overheads are not, construction materials, or it's different to a contractor. This is a professional service. Turnover threshold just didn't seem to be relevant anymore. We looked at ISO certifications. So we said we would take equivalents, which we assessed, or if they were willing to work towards an ISO certification, that was acceptable too, and we are tracking that. We also decided to remove value bands and decided to reserve places for micro SMEs, small organizations and medium plus on each lot. So you'll see that in a second. And we shortlisted based on 2 case studies with reasonable criteria on EDI as well. So how did we avoid the race to the bottom and the risk of lowballing? Well, this is just to get on the framework. But we decided to use the deviation from mean price evaluation. This was another tool in our box that Southwark was very kind in sharing their model for this, because it's very well established in Southwark. So I've had a number of questions since we've launched the frameworks, like how did you evaluate bidders? So in the ITT stage, this is the criteria that we used. So what's different about this? So you'll see some familiar criteria, but you'll see it's got an item, there's an item here, collaboration. There was also social value. So we have social value KPIs, and we assessed how they would deliver those. And we also had 3 scenario questions. So we took real life scenario questions, scenario situations. And again, that's Southwark helped us with. 70% quality, 30% price. So you might want to know which one of the consultants are local to you. So we can give you that information. So we have a tool that allows us to map where our suppliers are. I get asked, how do I shortlist to a smaller selection for mini competition? So the answer to that, the short answer would be just get in touch with us as early as possible. We can talk that through with you, but basically it's to provide as much information as possible. Consider whether you might have criteria that narrows the competition down, like certain qualifications, but do ensure that you're looking forward, looking at current skill set and looking forward rather than retesting experience, which can sometimes be a mistake. Can you direct award? Yes, is the short answer. You can. There's different ways that we can do that. So again, just have a chat with us. Most of the time it's possible to direct award, 9 times out of 10. How was social value evaluated? So it was based on the bidder's ability to deliver our social value framework KPIs. So this is the table of KPIs. So that's available for anyone that wants to see it. Obviously, I'm not going to go into detail now. What contract terms can you use? And the answer is we've got a lot of flexibility there as well. So there's no issues with any contract terms that you want to use. So you might want to know, well, how diverse is the MDC then? Well, I can confirm 11% of the appointed companies are female-led businesses. 7% are BAME-led. 90% are micro SMEs. 35% are small enterprises, and 46% are medium. So we really do have a good range. We've tried to make the framework as flexible as possible, and we think it would be sustainable and encourages growth over the next 6 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about engineering inspection services now. So EIS, as we call it, is available nationally in England and Wales. So this exists to help you cover all of your inspection needs so that you have a compliant asset management regime. So you will all have insurances, insurance provider requirements of the policy terms, and normally they do require regular inspections and reporting. So that will help you manage risks and avoid reliance on one provider. So I believe so that we'll talk a little bit about this later. So these are the work streams. These are different types of equipment, lifting equipment, electrical equipment, power press, machinery, playground. So everything's covered there. And this is the kind of regulations that the framework covers as well. So we are slightly ahead of time. So I have got, there is a chance for questions before we move on to the next item, which will be Southwark. Ethan, is there anything that we can take now?
Yeah, there was a question earlier on in the slides. Price remains a significant measure, typically 40% when bidding roles on frameworks. How does this square with collaboration?
How does price square with collaboration? Well, I mean, the client will decide for themselves how they're going to evaluate price. We now have a model of deviation from mean, so we would be happy to advise them. And we do try and encourage them to look at different options. So one of them being sharing your budget, your target price. So our part in that is we will encourage them to look at other other ways of evaluating price rather than just best price. My experience is quite often when best price rank is used, I get a disappointed stakeholder that's the result is not exactly what they thought it was going to be, because even when it's only 30%, sometimes it's the price that wings it. So yeah, we will do as much as we can to encourage other ways of evaluating price.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of questions that have just come in, and I'll be able to answer that. Firstly, the question was, are you able to share current client members to the LHC frameworks? And then another one came in, have you received much interest from clients in the MDC framework? Just to let you guys know on that one, we will be talking about that later on in the appointed company section of the presentation. So we will cover those questions. One question that's come in, how will local authorities commit to using the LHC frameworks? Example, based on individual project call-offs, or will they buy into the framework for its duration and the use of it solely?
Well, Southwark have committed to using ADS for its life, so for all of their requirements. Other clients, well, it depends on the relationship and, you know, our history with them. So it will be on a case-by-case basis, really.
Okay, thank you. And then the ITT pricing was based on deviation from the mean. Will all call-off contracts pricing assessments be carried out on the same basis?
No, that will be down to the client. So as I was saying, this is kind of covered by my answer earlier, I think. There are other ways of evaluating price, and we would encourage that. I don't think best price is a great way to evaluate. So yeah, there's Traz and Hamlins, in fact, did a paper last year on other price evaluation models. So I would encourage you to have a look at that. And we would encourage our clients to consider target price, in other words, sharing, you know, what's the budget for that scheme, as well as deviation from mean. Or sometimes you can actually do a combination of deviation from mean and best price, which feels a little bit more fair. Okay, so I think we will move on to the next item.